Let's see here. There it goes. Hello, everybody, and happy Halloween. This is Adam Schiff. Just want to wish everybody a happy Halloween. And remember, if the kids are taking more than one piece of candy, it's likely because they're Russian assets. So make sure you deny them the second piece of candy. Also, the president is not above the law. I repeat, the president is not above the law. He should be wishing a happy Halloween as well. Hello, this is Donald Trump. I'm not able to wish anybody a happy Halloween because I do not understand human compassion. Adam Schiff is a grifter and a loser. I say this because game recognizes game. For my costume tonight, I'll be going as two buns with nothing in the middle, aka the Mueller report. Boom, roasted. That was a funnier joke than the real Donald Trump could ever come up with. Loser. Hello, this is Nancy Pelosi. I just want to wish everybody here on Get Your Booze On with Jeremy a happy Halloween. You know me from Nancy Pelosi's book club. I'm going right in the middle because I'm not on that often. It takes a while to finish a book, and plus, I'm the shittiest impression. If you come to my house tonight trick or treating, you'll get a better deal where you get access to candy. It's a better deal than going to the neighbor's house when they're not even home. Happy Halloween. Hi, this is John Bolton. And how are you, Lucy? Remember, I'm the only one who knows the cat's name. I just want to wish everybody here at the show a happy Halloween. I'm sure you weirdos like Halloween, well, especially with that Music Monday you guys do, where I think you all worship Satan together, and then Ron talks about some band I've never fucking heard of. All right, y'all are weird. Happy Halloween, I guess. Hey, what's up, Oh, the cat's here again. This is really interesting. Hey, I mean, this is what's up, everybody? It's New Wave Vader. I am so hungover. Man, I had the craziest jam sesh yesterday. We're working on a new horror punk project. I can't name anyone else in the group right now, but we're thinking of calling it like Death Glam or something like that. Anyway, I hope everybody has a happy Halloween. I am going to, you know what? I'll tell you, my most gnarly, crazy Halloween was in Jersey in 77. We were doing a show, and up in the upstairs room, it was like a two-floor venue, like this big punk house. I'm so surprised the cops didn't shut it down. I think they eventually did. But we were down below, and total crazy energy from the crowd. I mean, this was really when we knew we were on to something. And then upstairs was the Misfits, and nobody was watching them. It was the original Misfits, Glenn, Jerry, they were all there. Nobody was watching them. And we were just shouting out Misfit songs, and they were just playing it. Black Flag was there. Man, such a crazy evening. That was an awesome Halloween. Anyway, I hope you all have a good one. Happy Halloween from New Wave Vader. Hello, it's me. I get to go last. Happy Halloween, everybody here on the Get Your Booze On with Jeremy and Ron, or whatever this show's called. Hello, Black Cat. Good to see you. I really didn't do much for Halloween growing up. I would get a bowl of borscht, and then I would just go around the neighborhood. But right now, I am with the Joe Biden campaign, and it has been a fun Halloween for us over at the campaign. I said, "Hey, Joe, I want you to be mummy creature." The rest of the campaign said, "No, bro, too real." And I said, "No, fuck that. I want my Instagram to be lit AF. He is mummy creature." And he agreed to it. So take a look out for that later. My social media is going to be off the chain. I don't even really know what any of that means. But anyway, happy Halloween. Now the regular show will start as soon as this dude fixes his hair. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer curated streaming news show. Happy Halloween. I hope everybody has some fun plans tonight. I'll be totally honest with you. This day bums me out a little bit. Fortunately, I got brunch plans, which I'm kind of excited about. I do have brunch plans after the show today, and I'll be going with all the contributors. You saw me and New Wave Vader and Chaos Agent 11 and Donald Trump and Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and John Bolton. We're all going to be going out. So I guess that's cool, going out with the contributors of the show. But it's just a little, this day used to mean so much to me. And I mean, it still does, but it's like, what's up, Lucy? I used to just I used to plan for this day for months. Like when I was a kid, we started planning our Halloween in August. And now it's just a day. And man, I don't know. I don't mean to harp on it, but if there's ever a time where it's like, man, I can really feel the fact that I'm getting older. This is it. But speaking of Halloween, here's a guy who really practices Halloween every single day, because this guy disguises himself as somebody who actually supports working people. So check this out. This is Joe Manchin. Boom. Manchin says he wouldn't back Sanders against Trump in presidential race. Joe Manchin. Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat in name only, he's too conservative even for the Democratic Party, said he would not back Bernie Sanders in a 2020 presidential matchup against Donald Trump. Manchin told Fox News he would absolutely not support Sanders' agenda, calling it not practical where I come from, even though Sanders was incredibly popular in West Virginia, which is the state Joe Manchin's in. But for some reason, apparently, not practical where he comes from, even though the people want it. Even though his state, Bernie, was incredibly popular there. But anyway, when Fox News' Neil Cavuto asked who Manchin would vote for if the Vermont progressive ended up becoming the Democratic presidential nominee, Manchin responded, well, it wouldn't be Bernie. Cavuto then pressed the West Virginia senator if he'd vote for Trump. Manchin declined to offer a specific response, saying, let's just say I'm going to make decisions based on what's best for my donors. He said country, but we all know what that really means. Donors. And my state, the state who overwhelmingly supported Bernie Sanders, where Bernie was incredibly popular. That state. The state where Bernie was very popular. Where Bernie got standing ovations. Where Bernie actually, he won some people over. He transformed a few folks. Some people who had voted Republican their whole life in the state of West Virginia listened to Bernie's message and decided we're going for this guy. He won some people over. All right. So Manchin, Joe Manchin. During the interview, Manchin, of course, was critical of the Medicare for All plan championed by Sanders. Bernie keeps saying Medicare for all, he said. I said, Bernie, we can't even pay for Medicare for some, which, again, is not true. That's not true at all. First of all, Medicare is very popular, and Medicare for all would expand what Medicare does. It would also reinvent the way we pay for our health care. Anyway, we got a story about this coming up later. All right. So Joe Manchin. When is the Democratic establishment going to blame Joe Manchin for things? When is Joe Manchin? Unreal. Every day is Halloween for Joe Manchin because he pretends that he's actually for working people. Every day is Halloween for him. All right. So here is something. And this was shared by Vampire Anarchy. We're going to go here because it's in our title today. Vampire Anarchy shares this. Here, let me go switch it out here. So check this out. This is shared by Vampire Anarchy over on the Reddit subsection. Vampire Anarchy, of course, is a form of anarchy where the only currency is blood. So it's very dark, very Halloween appropriate. And I don't know if I can get on board with it. It's kind of intimidating in my book. But anyway, here we go. Twitter announces a ban on all political ads. Interesting. Okay, so Twitter is halting all political advertisement across its social media platforms starting late next month. Gee, that's what great timing. A year before a presidential election. Okay. Founder and CEO Jack Dorsey announced Wednesday political message reach should be earned, not bought, Dorsey said in a series of tweets. A political message earns reach when people decide to follow an account or retweet. Paying for reach removes that decision, forcing highly optimized and targeted political messages on people. We believe this decision should not be compromised by money, he said. Well, internet advertising is incredibly powerful and very effective for Lucy. You're blocking the computer. Here, come here. For commercial advertisers, the power brings significant risk to politics. So when I first saw this headline, I was not really for it and expressed some concerns. But upon reading the article, keep in mind, this is Get Your News On With Ron. People send me stuff and we respond to it in real time. I actually am sort of coming around to this point of view. And I don't know. I think I'm okay with this. So it's not like you can't post political messages on Twitter, although we all have our concerns there, and reasonably so. They're just saying you cannot buy advertisements. And, and we all know there's stuff going on behind the scenes with shadow banning and stuff like that. And that, of course, continues to be a huge concern. But looking at it just from this rule alone, I don't know if I'm necessarily against it, because I kind of like that idea where it's like you are forced to get followers the old-fashioned way with just your message alone. Bernie Sanders has a lot of Twitter followers because people spread that message organically. He has more Twitter followers than a lot of people who are still buying their way into this presidential race. There are people running for president who barely have more followers than I do. And again, I'm a comedian who streams a news show in his living room with a black cat as a co-host. That's what I am. And there are people running for president who barely have more Twitter followers than me. So, yeah, I don't think I'm against this. I think I'm actually, at first you're kind of like, ooh, they're doing, but then you read on and you're like, well, actually, that just means the powers that be can't buy influence on Twitter. Now, of course, there's a lot of issues with shadow banning. There's a lot of issues with who has the ear of the people who really call the shots on Twitter. There's a lot of issues with the fact that Silicon Valley shouldn't determine which speech gets suppressed and which speech doesn't. Those are still separate issues that need to be addressed, and that's, a related but not quite the same topic. This is strictly speaking about buying political advertisements. And I'm not against the idea that they're saying, hey, guess what? You cannot buy a political advertisement. You need to earn it through your own tweets. And if you do that, that's great, but you need to earn it through your own tweets. I'm not opposed to that. Now, the article points out this is in sharp contrast with Facebook, who recently said you can buy political ads even if you're lying in them, which, and again, there's a lot of factors going on here. Who determines what is and isn't a lie? Who determines what is and isn't a political advertisement? What is Facebook going to pump over others? I know there's a lot of factors at play here, and it's not as easy as going, this is good, this isn't good. But the one thing that I think we can sum up as not being good is that Facebook and Twitter and Google, they're all in positions that they have no business being in. They have no business in making free speech decisions. They have no business in making decisions as to what gets amplified over what doesn't. There needs to be more transparency and accountability here, because they have become so huge that they are the modern day town squares, and the law has not caught up with technology. Technology's here. The law's still here. We don't have the type of policy we need to have messages function as diplomatically and transparently and democratically as possible. We just don't have that right now. But I think this singular approach Twitter's taking is actually better than Facebook. What do you guys think? Leave your thoughts in the chat. I'll be getting to it. I think it's better to just be like, okay, you just get your messages out there the old-fashioned way. You don't get to buy advertisements. I'm kind of okay with that. I'm okay with the idea that you can't buy your way to getting more attention, because your ideas should be able to stand on their own. And someone like a Bernie Sanders has a lot of Twitter followers. Someone like, and so does Kamala Harris, so does Joe Biden, but the idea that only your ideas are going to get you further, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think in this, for instance, I'm not total here. Let's see if there's anything I'm missing here. All right. So Twitter announces, made the decision, all political advertising, a political message reach should be earned, not bought. And this takes effect on November 22nd. The company defines a political ad as one that refers to an election or candidate, or that advocates for or against legislative issues of national importance, like climate change, healthcare. Okay, so now the water gets a little muddy. Okay, so yeah, and that's why I'm saying it's hard to just be for or against one thing. All right, I'm not for the fact that they include this second part here. All right, so if it was just candidates, I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with the idea that candidates, and I would say limit it to presidential. The presidential candidates cannot buy influence on Twitter. I'd be okay with that. Now, if it's a grassroots candidate that is running for Congress or running for something local, and they've raised a lot of support in their community, and they want to promote some Twitter ads to reach more people in their area, I think that's a little different. I think that's kind of a different scenario. I mean, I get it. It's still electoral politics. And I do think you have to have an all or nothing approach here. So I'm for limiting it when it comes to candidates. But I think that if it's a cause, those rules shouldn't apply. And I get, well, those are still technically political ads, Ron. I get that. But I think it should just be limited to candidates. Now, I do see the difference between someone running for school board and someone running for president. But I do kind of think you have to apply it across the board. And, you know, using the local example again, too, there could be some incumbent who has a big money machine behind them, but they're not a very good mayor or they're not a very good city council member and they're corrupt and they're in big pockets and they could just buy another election with Twitter ads. Whereas maybe a grassroots candidate who's really inspired a lot of people locally doesn't have that buying power. So maybe, you know, this ban on candidates buying ads on Twitter would give them a better shot. So, you know, there's kind of more than one way to look at all this. But I think overall, I like the idea of this applying to candidates. I don't like the idea as much of this applying to causes. I think that causes and initiatives and stuff like that, if they want to buy advertising on social media, I feel that they should still be able to do so. Because the reality is that helps get some message out. You know, I mean, that's just the reality. But I think candidates, I like the idea of, well, if you're a candidate, you can't buy an ad. You have to rely on your own ideas. You have to rely on your own tweets and your own retweets. And again, I understand there's a slippery slope there with shadow banning and those types of issues. So it's not an easy subject. It really isn't. It's not an easy subject. And at the end of the day, what we're dealing with is these Silicon Valley companies have power that they have no business having, that they're not equipped to handle, that they don't really want to bother becoming equipped to handle. And the law needs to catch up to technology. But I think looking at this, again, just on its own, I'm not necessarily against it. I am not quite for how far it goes. All right. So we're going to look at a couple more things here. And this, oh boy, guys, it is Halloween. As of the recording of this, it is Halloween. And there's some new information regarding Jeffrey Epstein. And man, how could we not talk about this? This should come as a surprise to absolutely nobody. This is, I mean, we've talked about this on the show before, the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. You're watching it and you're just like, there's no way, there's no way there's nothing more to this. There's no way this guy who was equipped with basically nothing except for the clothes on his body managed to hang himself. Nobody knows this. He was on some high scrutinizing watch, yet for some reason, the most famous prisoner in the world, pretty much. One of the most talked about stories. This guy who had so many assets, it was unbelievable. For some reason, only these incredibly tired, overworked people were watching him. Just them, nobody else. He was randomly taken off suicide watch for no apparent reason, and then he pulled it off in his cell with basically nothing at his disposal. That was the story we were told. And we're supposed to just shut up and take it and not question it. And if you do question it, well, they're going to try to suppress you every way they can. I guarantee this stream is already demonetized. I promise you. It is demonetized right now. But here's something. And of course, you have to go to a foreign outlet to see this. The corporate media in the United States barely talking about this, if at all. But hanging does not cause these broken bones. Epstein's injuries are more consistent with homicide, a noted pathologist says. And this is from yesterday, as of the recording of this. So this was on October 30th. Jeffrey Epstein's injuries suggest his death was more likely to have been a homicide than a suicide, to the surprise of nobody. according to New York City's former chief medical examiner hired by Epstein's brother to observe the sex offender's autopsy. Dr. Michael Baden told Fox News the wounds on Epstein's body are extremely unusual in suicidal hangings and could occur much more commonly in homicidal strangulation. The pathologist added that he had not seen such wounds in a hanging case in his 50 years of professional experience. I need a sip of coffee for that, don't you? Don't you? Hanging does not cause these broken bones, and homicide does, Baden insisted. A huge amount of pressure was applied. The official report from the New York City medical examiner into the financier's death found that he died by hanging in his jail cell. The official line has been disputed since the news first broke, sparking a wide variety of conspiracy theories given Epstein's high-profile political connections, which reportedly include the Clintons, the current U.S. President Donald Trump, and British royalty. It's 80 days now, and the brother feels like he is getting a runaround, Baden told Fox. He thinks that his brother wasn't the type to commit suicide, but he wants to get the information he hasn't been able to get so far. The city's chief medical examiner, Dr. Barbara Sampson, who ruled Epstein's death a suicide on August 10th, vehemently disputes Baden's determination. Well, of course she does. She ruled it a suicide. Some online commentators also took issue with Baden being cited as a credible source, given his own checkered past when employed by medical examiners' offices. He was allegedly dismissed by the New York City office in 1979 for poor record keeping and overall performance. All right, so I don't know a ton about this guy's past. Well, let's see what they're saying when they say his own checkered past. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, so here's what they're referring to when they bring up this guy's checkered past. Let's see. This is from 1982, by the way. So let's see what they're referring to with his own checkered past. We'll take a look into this. So this goes back to 1982, and this is from the New York Times. All right, this is a digitized version of an article. Cool. Dr. Michael M. Baden was ordered dismissed today as chief deputy medical examiner of Suffolk County after a magazine quoted him as giving what the county executive called advice on how to kill people. Okay, the county executive Peter F. Cohan said he had the authority to dismiss Dr. Baden because the forensic pathologist had not yet been permanently appointed. Dr. Baden has held the $53,557 a year post for less than a year. I guess in 82, that was significantly more than it is now. That's why they mentioned the salary. Obviously, that went a lot further in 1982 than it does today. What the exact translation numbers are, I don't know off the top of my head. But Dr. Baden was not formally dismissed today because county aides said they needed time to check civil service laws and decide whether a public hearing must be held or written charges filed in conjunction with the removal. Dr. Baden denied late this evening that he had been interviewed by We Magazine. I didn't say anything about how to commit the perfect murder. Okay, so it looks like this guy has some history. How credible? I mean, that seems like sort of a what their motivations were for doing that to him, I don't know. It seems a bit weird. They're saying, oh, he gave advice on how to kill people. He denies doing it. Just kind of seems like a weird situation. And who knows? Maybe he was rocking the boat back then too. I don't know a ton about this guy's history. But what I do know is there are so many inconsistencies in the Jeffrey Epstein case. And of course, someone who just said, yeah, it's a suicide, they're going to dismiss anything that comes to the surface that would dispute that, obviously. But this is a very common thing where they rush to judgment. They want to rule something right away. And anything that says, hey, there's a little more to this, it gets written off. And if you question the official narrative, that's some kind of conspiracy theory, despite how grossly unbelievable the official narrative is. Am I saying I know the answer? Absolutely not. I don't know the answer. I don't know what exactly happened to Jeffrey Epstein. But one thing I can say with a lot of confidence, and I think even the most rigid of person when it comes to questioning official narratives, uh, even the most rigid of person has some questions when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, this is our generation's JFK in so many ways. I'm not trying to compare him as an individual to JFK. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just saying, as far as the official story versus all of the factors going on, where you're like, wait a second, I don't think there's any way. I mean, I can count on one hand how many people I know personally, and I'm sure we all can, how many people accept the official JFK story. I literally know one person, and I had to make the effort to meet them. Like it was like JFK was in topic, and I was like, I don't know anybody who buys the official JFK story and thinks there's nothing else to this. And one of my friends who was there was like, I do. And I'm like, you think there's nothing else going on? And even he was kind of like, well, man, I don't know, and so that's what I mean when I say in many ways this is our JFK. So here you go. Here's another account by a medical professional who was sought out by the family, who's saying, no, these injuries, I've never seen injuries like this in a suicide. And now this person, despite what checkered past they may or may not have, they've probably seen some suicides before. And they're saying that not only are these injuries not consistent with a suicide, these injuries are not consistent with a suicide from a person who presumably had the tools at their disposal to commit suicide. You know what I mean? Like this guy was in a cell, pretty much armed with his clothes and I guess the bed, and that was it. So he's saying even people, when he's seen suicides in the past, who have had rope and had tested out the weight for their hanging or whatever else it may be, even those people don't have injuries consistent with what he saw in Jeffrey Epstein. So, and again, you can't talk about this stuff. You can't talk about this stuff, or you get called all kinds of names. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're this, you're that. I guarantee this stream is already demonetized. I promise you. But I don't know if we'll ever really know what exactly happened. I don't know if we'll ever really know. I'd like to think we will, but it's tough to say. And all right, so we're gonna go here now. This has been sent by Tim, which shout out to Tim. Tim is in Twitter jail for whatever reason. Tim's in Twitter jail, but so he emailed me this article and said, "Hey man, I'm in Twitter jail, but I hope you can get to this." So shout out to Tim. And oh, by the way, I forgot. Shout out to Linus. Linus shared that Epstein article in our Reddit subsection, which is just reddit.com/r/GetYourNewsOnWithRon. Shout out to Linus for sharing that Epstein article. And now we're on to Tim, who shares this about Donald Trump. So we covered the Minneapolis story. Now in Minneapolis, Donald Trump was having an argument with the city of Minneapolis and the mayor because they wanted him to pay in advance for his security. Why did they want him to do that? Well, because the Trump administration had been stiffing cities on security costs. And Donald Trump pointed out that his security bill was way higher than Barack Obama's was a little while prior. Here's the thing, though. Barack Obama was just giving a speech in a certain area, whereas Donald Trump was having an entire rally. So right there, it makes sense why one would cost more than the other. And second of all, a week prior, a Trump supporter in Minneapolis was threatening a Warren supporter with a gun. So, I can see why maybe security costs a little bit more, given the nature of the event and given some things that kind of led up to it. That's a little understandable. I'm sorry. But, so anyway, Donald Trump, that was a big to-do. Well, here's a follow-up on that. It seems like this is still going. The Trump campaign has over $1 million in outstanding bills from American cities. Albuquerque is now the latest city to join, which, by the way, Albuquerque, we're coming. But anyway, Albuquerque has joined a lengthy list of U.S. cities with a simple request: that President Trump's campaign pay for the cost incurred during a rally. On Wednesday, the Albuquerque Journal reported that the city sent an invoice to Trump's re-election campaign in an effort to recoup more than $211,000 in expenses from a September rally. That figure includes more than $71,000 in police overtime. Donald Trump, the first to always say Blue Lives Matter, the first to always praise the police, but he doesn't think they're worth paying, apparently. He doesn't think the cops are worth paying. All right. The Trump campaign's indifference to municipal bills has become a significant issue earlier this month when the city of Minneapolis, we covered that here on the show, attempted to get paid in advance for a rally Trump was planning to hold in the city. The president and his campaign publicly berated Minneapolis mayor, but even then it was easy to see why a city would want Trump's team to pay in advance. As the Minneapolis rally loomed, CNN went back to a number of cities that had been identified in June by the Center for Public Integrity as places with outstanding bills into the Trump campaign. CNN found that there were at least 141,000 still outstanding. This is the president doing this. The president is stiffing cities in our own country on security bills. He's just not paying them. He just doesn't feel like he should have to pay them. Just not paying for his own security. The president of the United States is doing that. The president. Isn't that amazing? How can you even entertain the idea that people are public figures? And that's why when you see a sitting senator or you see Morning Joe and Micah, when people boo the president and you hear them go, the office of the president is supposed to be respected. Some senator said that. I forget which one. I retweeted it. But, how dare you boo a president like that? The office of the president should be respected. No, it shouldn't. Respect is earned, not just given. And it's certainly not owed to some corrupt institution, to some corrupt to the hill institution that is electoral politics in the United States. Where you have a seat where one of the prereqs is you got to be willing to be a war criminal. You got to be willing to preemptively bomb countries that pose no threat whatsoever to the United States. We just want their resources. That's a prereq for the job of the presidency. And I'm supposed to respect that office, or anybody is supposed to respect that office. That's ridiculous. If anything, it should almost be the opposite, where the office of the presidency should be greeted with skepticism, with frustration, and with scrutiny to the point of it almost being overbearing. That's how the office of the presidency should be greeted. I mean, I would go a step further. I think what should disqualify somebody from being able to run for president. And there's a comedian here in Los Angeles, Kate, who has an amazing joke about this. But I truly think this should be applied. If you want to run for president, that disqualifies you. You want to run for president? Okay, you can. You can. If you want to do this, you can. And of course, that was the original Greek democratic experiment. That was how they did it. They actually appointed people where they had to appoint the person. If you wanted the gig, you were disqualified. I like that. I really do. Now, that means if somebody recruited me to run for something, I'd have to do it, which I probably wouldn't anyway, which would make me hypocritical. And hey, guilty as charged. But because I feel that way, sometimes people are like, Ron, will you ever run for office? I always say no, because, I just don't want to get involved with electoral politics. I feel like I want to be in an industry with a little bit more integrity. That's why I stay in show business. But I'd have to practice what I preach here. And if somebody legit recruited me to run for something, I'd have to do it. I don't know what I'd do in that situation. Would I want to do something I really don't want to do and run for office, or just look like a hypocrite for a little bit? I think I'd just pick look like a hypocrite for a minute. We're all hypocrites, by the way. Are you living? Are you breathing? You're a hypocrite. We're all hypocrites at one point or another. So, yeah. But hey, I think that's why people don't echo those ideas often, because they realize, well, if I say that, that means if someone recruits me, I would have to run for something. I don't want to do that. So I'll just not mention that I like that idea. Oh, well, I already said it out loud. What can you do? All right. We're going to go here. And shout out for Tim for sharing that article. So NPR stands for Natural Petroleum Radio, or Nice Polite Republicans, depending on how you look at it. And some people say, why do you say that? NPR, they're the good guys. Come on. They don't take Coke money. Yes, they do. And here's what else they do. They have misleading headlines like this. Bernie Sanders won't yet explain details of how to pay for Medicare for all. Okay, let's stop right there. Bernie Sanders has already explained many times how we're going to pay for Medicare for all. We're going to pay for it like all single-payer systems work, okay? Medicare for all over the course of years is going to cost around $30 trillion. Our current system cost around $50. That was revealed by a study funded by the Koch brothers, where they wanted to do everything they could to discredit Medicare for all, yet they still concluded that Medicare for all was cheaper than what we currently do. So we will all be paying less for healthcare. The difference is, instead of paying a for-profit insurance company that is looking to price gouge you and screw you, which is why we have one of the worst healthcare systems in the industrialized world. Oh, wait a second. We have the worst. Out of the industrialized world, we have the worst healthcare system. I mean, we're like 37th. We're 37th. There is no country that has anywhere close to our amount of wealth that has a system as broken as ours when it comes to health insurance. Nowhere close as it touches it. It's unheard of in other places. And maintaining that horribly corrupt system cost more money than doing Medicare for all, which means we would all pay less in healthcare. The difference is we would just be paying the government instead of paying these insurance companies. So technically, our tax bills would go up. Yes, definitionally, that's true. But it's just because we're not paying it in taxes now. We're paying an insurance company. Instead of paying an insurance company, we'd pay the government, but we'd be paying them less. It'd be like, hey, I'm paying Peter $300 a month for my car bill, and I get a shitty car. I can pay $150 a month for a better car, except I'll be paying Paul. Oh, wait, I have a problem with this because I'll be paying Paul more. Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't. So whenever someone says our tax is going to be raised, they're intentionally going after a misleading misinformation smear on Medicare for all. That's what they're doing. And they all know better, because what I just explained is not rocket science. It's not that hard to wrap one's head around. It's quite simple. You're just paying a different entity. I am incredibly shitty at math. I hated my accounting class with a passion. I wasn't a fan of econ that much either. But even I understand these basic concepts. They're not that hard. By the way, one of the reasons I really hated my accounting class was because I took it during the election in 2004, and my teacher loved Bush. He freaking loved Bush. TEQs wield a little bit of power. I learned this later in my life when I was on the other side of it and I was teaching. Those teacher evaluations, they wield a little bit of power. He did not get a very high one from me. Sorry, whatever. You're going to use our time where we're supposed to be learning accounting to fucking parrot your Fox News dogma about how much you love Bush. Fuck off. Anyway, and in 2004, I was less angry. I was about to say I was angrier, but I was like, no, actually, I was a little less angry in some ways. Anyway, neither here nor there. But so anyway, this is not rocket science, is my point. So right there, that headlining is misleading. What did Bernie Sanders actually say? Let's look at what Bernie Sanders actually said. Because if you bother to read, which, by the way, I hate to focus on aesthetic things here, but I think it is worth noting that when they're trying to smear somebody, they intentionally find an unflattering photo of them. This is a picture of Bernie Sanders. He was probably in the wind His hair's a little messy, and I know that happens to him some. But this is not a flattering photo of Bernie Sanders. They picked it out intentionally. Let's be real. I mean, and they do this all the time to Bernie Sanders. They do it to Tulsi Gabbard a lot, too. That's another one. When you look at articles trying to smear or discount Tulsi Gabbard, they always find the most unflattering photo of her they possibly can. Do the same to Bernie Sanders. This is by design. You really think this is a coincidence? You think it's a coincidence in the article where they want to smear a person, they find an unflattering photo? This is by design. This is why your media is failing you miserably. And this is why you're turning to a comedian in his living room with a black cat to find out what's going on in the mornings or afternoons, whenever it is you're watching it. But anyway, all right. So here's what Bernie actually said. Here's the actual quote. You're asking me to come up with an exact detailed plan of how every American, how much you're going to pay more in taxes, how much I'm going to pay. I don't think I have to do that right now. So what Bernie Sanders actually said was, I don't have the exact numbers of how higher every single person's tax bill is going to be. They have the gist of it, and the article even points that out. It's going to be a progressive tax. All that I'm saying is that here's more from Sanders' quote. All that I'm saying is that we have laid out a variety of options that are progressive. We'll have that debate. At the end of the day, we will pay for every nickel of Medicare for all, and it will save the overwhelming majority of the American people who will no longer pay premiums. When Sanders introduced Medicare for all, he also released a document listing potential ways to pay for the plan. These include raising taxes on the top earners and imposing a wealth tax for the richest Americans, as well as a 4% tax on Americans earning $29,000 a year and a new tax on employers. So basically, he laid out multiple ways of how we're going to pay for this in a progressive way, which, by the way, is what most other industrialized countries do. Pretty much all of them do. And the ones that have a more private-focused health insurance system, like Switzerland, they have a ton of protections on what those companies can and can't do. So it's nothing like ours. It is nothing like ours. And in most cases, the role for private insurance is very, very, very little, which is what Medicare for All would accomplish. So he lays out how to pay for it. They're just asking him, well, how much? Family X, are they going to pay X dollars more per year or Y dollars more per year? And he's saying, I don't have that exact number yet, which, by the way, is totally reasonable. And they use that answer. You see how Sanders laid out how he's going to pay for this, how it's cheaper, what exactly it's going to do. But because he didn't have the exact number for family X versus family Y and dollar amount X versus dollar amount Y, which is totally not necessary at this point in time anyway, here's the headline they came up with. Here's their headline. Bernie Sanders won't yet explain details of how to pay for Medicare for all. They use that as the headline. Meanwhile, throughout their very own article, they go into detail about how he laid out how he will pay for Medicare for all. But they're hoping that nobody reads past the headline. That's what they're hoping. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. And again, the nature of this show, I'm seeing every article for the first time. That's the point of this show. It's fun. It's goofy. People tweet me the articles that we talk about. So we get our news on together. So my point is that even with just skimming this thing, you see how full of shit it is. You know, it's not like I sat down and dissected this article for an hour and a half before this show started. I didn't do that. Just through seeing this, you identify this is BS. They're that shameless in how they recklessly arrange their data and have this misleading headline, this deliberately misleading headline. You think the person who wrote this article, person's name, Danielle Kurtzelben. You think Danielle Kurtzelben didn't know better, didn't see all this data where he's talking about how this plan would be paid for, how it saves us money, how it's more efficient and less expensive than what we do now. She knows all this. Yet still went with that headline. Why? Because the donor class doesn't want Medicare for all. And the donor class funnels money to NPR. Nice, polite Republicans. All right. Let me see what you guys are saying. Happy Halloween, by the way. I hope everybody has a fun... I don't have any solid plans tonight. I really don't, which, again, bums me out a little bit. I don't want to get on my sadness. By the way, shout out to our sponsor, ZTE.com, ZHITEA.com. Their tea kind of rules. Don't want to focus on my sadness here. Trying to be fine. Thank you very much for the Super Chat contribution. Here's some remonetization, Ron. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that, which I'll mention it. Hey, if you want to support this show on the sustainability end, patreon.com/Ron Placone. For a Give What You Can level, you get all kinds of exclusive content. You get a bonus stream every week. Every week we do a patrons-only stream. The replay is only available on Patreon, and I only respond to the comments that are left on Patreon. That's a patron stream. Happens every week. Also, you get my album for download. You can just download my album on my Patreon. You just go, you just hit download, you download it, you got it. You get full stand-up clips not available anywhere else. You get dialogues between myself and Lucy before they're illustrated. Fun times. Patreon.com/Ron Placone. Help keep this show on the air. Help me expand this show. Help me have more guests. Help me do more streams. Help me do more segments. And upgrade some equipment. You know the drill. Happy Halloween. Tour dates. I got them. November, Australia. We're coming. Can't wait to see Australia. November 14th, Melbourne. Working on saying it right. November 15th, Adelaide. November 17th, Sydney. November 22nd, Perth. Get your tickets now at ronplacone.com. Southern California, December 13th, Ventura Harbor Comedy Club. December 14th, the Dojo of Comedy, Sycamore Tavern, right here in Los Angeles. That's going to be Graham Elwood and myself working on our show for 2020. We're going to be touring a lot in 2020. So we're working on our show now, which, speaking of 2020, some of those tickets are available now. What shows would those be? February 8th, Tucson, Arizona. February 29th, San Francisco, California. March 12th, Orlando, Florida. March 14th, Miami, Florida. Tampa, hold tight. We're coming. We're working on it. April 10th, I'll be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. April 24th, Seattle, Washington. April 25th, Portland, Oregon. And Cleveland, Detroit, Cincinnati. Hold tight. We got some news for you really soon. Also, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hold tight. We're going to have some news for you really soon. And East Coast, we're coming later in the year. Minneapolis, we're coming back. You know the drill. RonPlacone.com for all the tickets that are available now, though. Guys, happy Halloween. I hope you had a wonderful week. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And I wish you all the best. Oh, anti-neoliberal bot. Happy birthday. Anti-neolib bot. Josh, happy birthday, buddy. I hope you're having a good one. That's really badass that your birthday's on Halloween. I dig that. But, guys, thank you so much for being part of this. And you know the drill. Lucy says meow. I say peace. We'll be back Monday, by the way. Monday for Music Monday. And until then, you know the drill. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Peace.